All right, this is an unreleased video from my private scaling group where I'm talking about reprogramming your brain for success in your agency. I struggled a lot with mindset. There was self-sabotage. I just found I knew what I needed to do, but I wasn't doing it. And I was constantly, it felt like I was shooting myself in the foot and just causing myself problems that I didn't really need to face. But I found an insane fix. And this is one of the mandatory must-watch videos in my private scaling group. So if you are looking to reprogram your brain for success in scaling your agency, this is a 100% must-watch all the way through to the end, because there's some serious hacks. There's some real actionable advice here that you can take. And yeah, enjoy. What's going on? Reprogramming your brain. You have to do it. Unless you were raised by an entrepreneur, you have to reprogram your brain in order to be successful. I think we all know that at this point. But I want to go really deep into how to reprogram your brain, the most effective ways that I've done it, common mistakes, issues that I've ran into, just so that you guys can do it faster than I did, essentially. Now, there are a lot of things that go into it, but in my opinion, and from my personal experience, writing has been the single biggest game changer for my mindset, for my mental, just for how I think. Because as we know, as high-level entrepreneurs, we need to learn how to think. And it's just a completely different thing that obviously, as we all know, we don't learn in school. But I want to stress the importance of writing for a second as a way to reprogram your brain. I write stuff down every day. And I've done it in the past. I stopped and I restarted, and I wish I never stopped. I'm going to get into what it is that I write, why I write it, why I write each of these things. But what I want to get into right now, again, is writing is, maybe you guys have heard that if you hand write notes when learning in class, it actually improves the retention of the information that you learned. So things stick with you longer. So if you're trying to change your ways of thinking and you drill something into your mind with writing, then it's going to stick longer than if you just said it or if you just thought it. Writing is crazy because you can be a maniac with your writing and make wild changes in your mental in literally half an hour. Wild changes. Lasting changes. Seriously crazy shit. So I'll get into that. But I use writing as the main mechanism for reprogramming my brain. Another great thing you can do is write things down and then read them out loud right after. So you're kind of realizing things with your words also. But writing is useful for so many different things. Dumping thoughts out of your brain. If you ever feel overwhelmed, write everything, every single thought that comes to mind, get it on paper, then you can organize your thoughts, or you can just let it out, and maybe that's all you needed to do. Writing is the biggest hack for so many things, especially when you get busier, when you get overwhelmed. Crazy. That being said, what are confirmations? We've all heard of affirmations. I am the richest man in the world. I never did affirmations. I actually started doing them recently. Curious to see if that'll change anything for me. But something that I know has changed my life on numerous occasions has been confirmations. Confirmations being an affirmation plus a because. So for example, an affirmation is, I am a successful entrepreneur. If you say that enough times to yourself, like, sure, but are you just being delusional, or are you a successful entrepreneur by some definition? If you say, I'm a successful entrepreneur because I've been in business for 4 months and my revenue is $3,000 a month. you're successful. You're making money. There's no hard definition on success, and we can get into that. That's a really deep conversation, definitions of words, because the way that you speak and what you say is crazy. That goes deep. But if you write down an affirmation and write a reason why it's true, then you're confirming to yourself that this thing is true, as opposed to just being like, I'm rich, I am rich, I am rich. You look at your bank account, you're broke. It's like, what the hell? You know? So a time that you'd want to write down a confirmation that you're rich is you close some deals. Oh, I'm rich, right? And that'll help you feel better. I haven't done the rich one specifically, as maybe not the best example, but you get the idea, right? You might be thinking now like, whoa, there are so many things I can use confirmations for. You know, a lot of guys will talk about, oh, I have a limiting belief. A couple years ago, I had this limiting belief that like people who would make like $1 million a month at age 26, 27 were special, and that I was not special. So I would write down every single day, once per day, I can make $1 million a month at age 26 because insert name here did it. The next day, because insert different name here did it. The next day, because insert different name here did it. And let's say you run out of names, you run out of examples. You can just repeat them. And just remind yourself that, well, that guy did it. So did that guy, and so did that guy. Maybe you only know of 3 people who did it, but that means you can do it. And if you write it down every single day, I at least do it like 4 to 5 days a week on my work days. Now, I'll show you how we can put this stuff on crack. But some of the other things that you can write are also reminders, which I don't think I have written here. But reminders are a great thing that you can write, because oftentimes we just need to be reminded of things that we already know. You know, there's stuff you need to do. Writing helps a lot with that. You can, it could be a reminder of a way of thinking. And we'll get into that in a second as well. But X is true because Y is a confirmation, and you can do all sorts of stuff. You have imposter syndrome. I provide a good service because X. The next day, I provide a good service because Y. It can, the X or the Y can be as simple as I'm amazing at, I'm amazing at dealing with customer concerns. That's a major part of service. There's nothing to take lightly, right? You want to make sure you're not diminishing the good things that you're doing. Now, if we want to get into aggressive reprogramming, this is where things get pretty sick, actually. So I do some pretty aggressive reprogramming with writing. And I've been playing around with it a lot more in the last few months, and holy. So right now I write down, I've got my notebook here, you can probably hear it. I write down about half a page of things that I want to reprogram my brain with every day. I'll get into what they are and stuff, but what I also do sometimes is this. Let's pretend that something's been bothering you. Or let's pretend you've caught yourself having a bad thought on a regular basis. That thing keeps coming up because you haven't addressed it. So what you'll want to do is write down one confirmation about that thing on repeat. What I did, I would write down one confirmation about said thing on repeat for like half a page. Not like going one line at a time, but like writing as if you're writing a paragraph, half a page, filling the whole half a page with some confirmation about whatever the thing is. So that's step one. Step two is now that you're like getting into this state of mind, you want to enter flow state here. You start getting into this state of mind where this is all you're thinking about. Now start changing up and filling in the blanks, filling in the because with something else and something else and something else. Things are going to start flying out of your brain, especially, I mean, not especially, but things are just going to start flying out of your brain. There are going to be 50 reasons why this thing is true. It's so easy to find proof. It really, really is for so many different things. Write them all. Literally do not stop writing. I would go for half an hour and write 4 pages straight of just X is true because, X is true because, X is true because, X is true because. Writing, drilling this all into my brain like absolute mad. Now what happens is, instead of using 1 confirmation per day for 90 days, you've probably just done 250 days of confirmations in half an hour. Whoa. Some of you guys are probably sitting there like, holy shit. Yes. It's crazy. If there's something on your mind, if there's a bad mindset that you have, you want to change it. And if you want to change it hard and fast, you can just do 1 major session. And this is usually what I do for things that have been on my mind to a heavier degree. But then you can also write a confirmation a day. I think it's a great thing to do this longer term, because it builds things within your brain. And if you have extra space on your page, if you have an extra 2 minutes, write one of them down 5, 6, 10, 15 more times if you have a couple minutes to spare. That's what I do. You don't have to. I'm telling you what works for me. That's aggressive reprogramming. Another thing is timelines. You want to make these changes. You want to make them overnight. Maybe you're like, I want to do a 30-minute session and like change something big time. It'll work, but again, what's going to happen is if you do it one time for 30 minutes, you'll eventually fall back into your ways. And then you'll be like, fuck, how did I get back here? There's kind of like a trend line with habit creation. Or not habit creation, but with reprogramming your brain. And it's like a stock chart, honestly. So we have point A. Let's not do that. Let's be real. I don't want to connect those lines. But what happens is this. And let's go like here. So you have point A down here, and you have point B up here. Starting at point A is like, you're always focused on revenue, and you can't focus on enjoying yourself. That was something I really struggled with. Point B is you're like, I don't care about my revenue. I'm like, you don't expect revenue, right? You don't have high expectations and always get disappointed. That's what my situation was. Obviously, numbers are at the foundation of your business's growth and health. But that's your point B. That's your goal situation. Now, let's say you do one big thing, you do one big 30-minute session and you take a big leap. Well, it could even be a month later, you'll find yourself falling back to this position. Then you do maybe another 30-minute session and then you fall back. And then another, and then you fall back. To be honest, that would be a lot of 30-minute sessions. Maybe it would take longer than a month for you to kind of fall back. But even if you're writing the confirmations every day, you will fall back into your old ways. Generally speaking, it happens easier though when you stop. So if you write confirmations for 2 months, 3 months, and then stop, something like this will happen. So how long does this take? Well, it kind of takes as long as you want it to. And I've found recently that it's significantly easier to make these things happen faster. But for me, it's taken me like 2 to 3 years to like fully reprogram certain things in my brain. But you can do it a lot faster if you don't stop writing confirmations. And, if you combine, like I only learned about doing these 30-minute crazy aggressive reprogramming sessions in the last few months. So it took me 2 to 3 years to fully make a few mindset shifts, to fully change my ways of thinking, to fully reprogram. Now I'm realizing there are significantly faster ways to do it. And that's what I want to share with you guys here. So if you can do, again, 2 key things, which are daily writing and the odd aggressive reprogramming session when you feel it's necessary, and you don't stop doing this for, let's say, more like a year instead of what I did, which was like, I want to say like 40 to 60 days or 90 days, things are going to set in a lot better for you. Because the things I did worked, but now I'm looking at, again, just putting all that on steroids. So, they can happen in a matter of months, but for any major mindset shift, I'd be like, hey, let's look at this as like a year-long journey here. Common struggles and mistakes when you're, dealing with just your brain in general. Mindset, some people will say. I don't know, mindset's a weird term. But having too high of expectations was something I had an issue with. It was like, oh, next month I want to do 50 grand, and then I wouldn't do it, and I'm like, I suck. And then like that's negative reinforcement, and then you start having this negative self-talk. And you don't necessarily have the negative self-talk. Like, I wouldn't say I suck, because that was, one of the things I was working on, was not saying things like that, even as a joke. But this can really cause you some mental issues, and just give you unnecessary stress and pain and make you struggle. So that was an issue that I faced, and the solution to that is focusing more on process orientation. This has been about a 2 and a bit year journey for me, and I'll tell you what I'm writing here in a second to kind of close the gap on that, because I've made it most of the way. I'm like here, or actually I found myself kind of like here, and now I'm like just pushing at the end. Another thing is a focus on why things are not working. You send an email, you send cold emails, and you're like, God, I can't seem to hit a 2% positive reply rate. It's like, well, that's not a good thing to say, right? If you say I can't do X thing, you're just reinforcing the fact that you can't do such a thing, right? Whereas if you pay closer attention, instead of having an expectation of a 2% positive reply rate when maybe you've hardly sent that many cold emails in your life, maybe you can say, well, the goal is a 2% positive reply rate. I'm here, or I'm here. It's going to be a journey to get to the goal regardless. This is something that for some reason, it just took me way too long to understand and accept. So instead of saying, oh, I can't do this because, and making your journey 50 times longer, you'd want to say, well, I can hit a 2% positive reply rate because last week I was at 0.3 and this week I'm at 0.5. That's a very significant jump, right? If you just iterate and keep split testing cold emails, you'll find your 2%. It's just a matter of time, and things take time. Not just changes in your mental. Baggage from your upbringing. This can be something that really holds you back. You may know that you have negative mindsets. Some people may call you out for having negative mindsets. Take that as positive feedback, or take that as feedback rather, and find a way to reprogram. If you're ever curious about how to do this stuff, just hit me up on a call or make a post in the group. Now, some recommendations of mine for things to reprogram is playing long term. Playing this game, it's like a stock chart. Things are always going to go up and down, but you want the trend line to be positive, and there's going to be a goal. This is like, if you can take this approach to business, you're good, like you're set. So if you have a focus on playing long term, that will help a lot. Again, this process versus goal orientation. What I write down every day is the only thing I need to focus on right now is process orientation. Process orientation is solving all of my problems. Action is the easiest way to focus on the process. Action puts me in a state of control, which I love. It excites me. This also makes me more present in the business and drives growth. And I have some other stuff here that's not quite as relevant. But, listening to my true self is one of them. Life is a process, and process orientation is making life more fun. I make things happen because instead of things happen to me. Even though I've achieved some pretty impressive things, some people would say, my therapist who I was talking to, which I actually highly recommend if you have the cash, crazy dude, therapist is like a mindset coach. It's insane. But he found that I had a flawed way of thinking, which is I said, hey, something crazy happened. And he was like, why do you say that? And he just confronted. I was like, I don't know, to be honest. And he's like, from everything that you've told me, you make things happen. And so we talked about that for quite a while, because to me, it's an incredibly important thing, and that's a flawed way of thinking. So if you catch yourself in flawed ways of thinking, then you can use this stuff to, you can use confirmations, you can use reminders as well, like I said, in order to remind yourself of things. Like process orientation is solving all my problems. Again, the only thing I need to focus on right now is process orientation. I can forget about everything else. Revenue doesn't matter. The money's coming in, I'm fine. It's just, for me, the only thing I need to focus on right now is process orientation, because the rest falls into place when I do that and life becomes better. So I remind myself of that every day. And then sometimes I'll cram things in. Like I make things happen because my 3.5-year plan is paying off, right? I make things happen because I'm closing at 78%. I make things happen because whatever. So do with this what you will. Let me know if you have any questions. That is all. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. If you want to join my private scaling group, or if you want me to help you grow your agency or automate your agency, go book a call with me in the description. We can have a chat about that. Otherwise, click whatever's popping up on screen now.